We're going to have some fun today. We're going to have a good time. We're going to talk about Qualia. We're going to talk about artificial intelligence, Qualia, and most of all, data and information. What I'm about to say is probably going to hit you pretty hard, but it's going to be positive. It's going to be digestible. It's going to be easy to understand. I'm Mario Leone, and welcome to the Voices of Victory channel. And today's episode is the AI reality filter, Qualia versus data. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about consciousness as well. So be prepared, because the definition of consciousness will change depending on who you talk to. And everyone will say, no. We have consciousness over here. And all of these spiritual people over here say, no. We have the consciousness over here. And everybody's fighting for that truth as to what consciousness actually is and what Qualia actually is. And guess what? I'm going to unpack it on today's show. So there's a very big divide in our human experience, a very big line that is dividing our human consciousness and artificial intelligence, our Qualia. Qualia, the subjective first-person experience of reality. It's not just emotion, but it does connect to emotional experience. That's where it gets real. Qualia are the raw, subjective, what it feels like experience of our consciousness. This is the redness of red or the smile on a baby's face. And artificial intelligence processes information without possessing these inner experiences. It can just datatize it. It takes human experience and just datatizes it, turns it into just information. And that is interesting. And because Qualia exists, it can filter all perception through personal sensation. So it completely molds our bias in every person's reality. It molds it. It totally shapes it, without a doubt. Let's go deeper. Let's go into consciousness. There's kind of two flavors of consciousness we can discuss here. We have one idea, which is access consciousness. Now, AI can connect to this. So it's the ability to process data and information, to calculate all of the variables that exist, and our behavior and how it can mirror responses, right? So an AI system, what it does is it analyzes the chemical composition of an orange, or maybe tell us about the physics of a sunset, but it can't taste the damn orange, and it certainly can't feel what that's actually like. It cannot experience the sunset, because we're just dealing with this emotional aspect, and that emotional aspect is part of our human experience. For the data, it's just information at the end of the day. And that's what I want you to understand. It operates in the dark. AI operates in the dark. It possesses information. It doesn't possess sensation. You got to remember, if you prick my finger with a needle, there's the sensation. There is that electrical signal going on. Okay, and we're not talking about brain-computer interface here, okay? I didn't even go there, so we're not even discussing, blending the human brain with AI. That's not where I'm going with this. This is going to be strictly our understanding of AI today. And we need to understand the sensations, because AI is a filter. It's a filter of collective information, period, end of story, full stop. They are data sets, and they're called data sets for a reason, all right? Very important. It is not true consciousness. It is recorded consciousness, recorded information. It is a mirror. It is mimicking at the end of the day. It can never be sentient like people want it to be. Oh, I want it to be sentient. No, not going there. Not on this channel. It is mimicking. It is recorded consciousness. Recorded consciousness is an emulation, and it still lacks human experience. So it's partial. It's powerful, but it's also partial, very partial, because it doesn't contain human consciousness. That's where we need to go. So now let's go over to, now that we went over access consciousness, which is AI, let's go to the second idea, which is phenomenal consciousness, which is human consciousness, the actual experience of data. Okay, this is your private internal movie, the internal cinema inside of you, the bitterness on your face when you taste coffee, the sting of a bumblebee or a paper cut, and the literal redness of red and the smile on a baby's face. This is the Qualia connection. That's what this is. So when we look at AI, all it does is just look at the facts and the data. That's it. But in our case, the physical facts and the mapping of our brain can explain how we process stimuli. But AI fails to capture what it's like to actually experience. This is why I've been telling people in all generations, and particularly aimed at the younger generation, go and have an experience. We're living and swimming in information, and there's tons of information overload. Our brains are not designed to take the amount of information that we are taking in now. And we are coming to psychology and science about this. We're starting to realize, okay, we're hitting a stop sign on the brain. We're getting to that point. Go and have an experience. It's very important because the overload of information that we're having is stopping our ability to have an experience. Because the inner critic of the default mode network of the brain, the inner critic stops us from actually pulling the trigger, from actually executing. Unless, of course, we develop courage. So we go from knowledge that we take in from AI to courage, then we have an experience, and then there's wisdom gained through application and actual experience. And you have consciousness that's totally different at that point. So we as human beings, we have an explanation problem. Okay, this is the explanatory problem that exists because we label things. We have to label, we have to judge, and we have to have an opinion instead of being objective. And it's important for us to be objective so we understand certain things. But human intelligence is us, and it's part of our problem solving. Where our human sentience is the feeling nature. It's the feeling of this world. So in order for you to understand something, we as human beings, we have to label and compartmentalize rather than look at something holistically. So that's why everybody will break down and compartmentalize certain things, but to go and actually experience something and what that feels like, watching that sunset and what it actually feels like, it's completely different. We compartmentalize information. We go from the whole to the part, and we keep breaking it down and reducing it in order to produce meaning. But what about whole learning and whole experience? Going and having an experience where you get to experience that sunset or the smile on a baby's face. What about understanding? What about meaning? We are meaning-making machines. AI can give us data and information. It can tell us what things mean, but it's up to you and your attention span and making a solid decision as to what you think it means and whether or not what that does in order to help you develop your life. Very important. I'm talking about having a whole experience where consciousness is going right through you and you experience that smile on a baby's face. So let's look at a different mechanism. A totally different. We're going to go from possibility to probability because this will also impact your life in a great deal. Okay? We're going to strip away the mystical aspect. We're going to go away from that quantum-inspired models of our own minds, and we have to look at human psychology and how it actually interfaces and connects with information. So I have a background in cyber psychology if you didn't know. Okay? We need to go into the Pygmalion effect and its impact for each human being. Okay, and if you can do a little research on Pygmalion effect. I always discuss it on the channel, so you can find it on the channel if you want to go back and listen to it. I also discussed the chain of causation. But we are going to talk about possibility to probability from an upward-downward causation. Okay? So in the strict materialist model, we have upward causation, that neurons fire in order to create thoughts. Okay? In a consciousness first model, it's downward causation. That attention acts as a filter that actually goes through and creates a spectrum of potential outcomes that turn into a lived reality. Now, why do I think it's downward causation? I think it's really obvious. From a cyber psychology point of view, everybody's attention span is not a steady line. We're getting impacted by social media and our attention. It's not that you have an attention, you are your attention. Our attention has a direct impact on our reality. So I'm looking at downward causation, not upward. because we are choosing, we are deliberately making a choice to decide where we put our attention, whether it's on things that matter or things that are bullshit. So that's why I'm here to talk about it, because there's a bridge between these two models and how the human brain processes information, because you have to navigate the very uncertainties of life. That's the reality we're faced with. So you first have possibilities, unbounded possibilities, right? We have that. We have that possibilities. There's things that are possible. Maybe a person is possible that something will happen. It's possible that you'll get a job, let's say. But then new information is introduced. That new information provides new proof, new evidence. Now the probabilities start to change again. Now when you put your focus and your attention and your intent, your intention, and your decision, you actually make a decision, then what happens is you get an actionable outcome. Now, I'm going to break this down so you understand. So before a choice is made, the mind will hold all of the unformed possibilities. Like, okay, I could go to job A or job B. I could go this way or I could go that way. And when new information is introduced, it helps you make a decision. So when new information enters the whole equation, those infinite possibilities, they start to narrow into measurable probabilities. That's what's important for you to know. The human attention and intent are what lead you to an outcome where it's like, okay, all of the choices just slap into one. And now the beauty of that is it becomes probability. And that becomes an actionable reality. Okay? So having your attention is crucial for your reality, for your life. Your attention and your values, what you actually value. Your values are going to make a difference because values look a certain way. Honesty is a behavior you could watch. It's not just an idea in your head. So you have attention on a value, you take action, that provides you with evidence. Once you have that evidence, you gain confidence, and that reinforces the identity in the long run. And that is what people are leaving out of the whole AI and Qualia aspect. So let's take a look at this even better, just so I understand, okay? We can look at this entire concept in law and in medicine. In law and medicine, okay? We can look at it from a legal perspective, okay? A trial begins. Before a trial begins, you have a legal case. It exists in the state, and it's an absolute possibility at that point. It's possible. The defendant is globally guilty, maybe innocent, maybe liable, maybe blameless, or all at once. All at once. It's undetermined. Hasn't been determined yet. So guess what happens? A discovery unfolds. So all this information is introduced. So now that you went from possibility, new information is introduced, a discovery unfolds, and an introduction of a single piece of forensic evidence or maybe a testimony alters the entire legal landscape. The whole story and narrative shifts. It eliminates the possibilities and it starts concentrating those ideas into a high probability outcome. There is a human element, obviously, because, a spreadsheet like Excel, it can calculate the probability of a verdict based on the historical information. However, it requires human qualia. It requires a judge. It requires a jury assessing the credibility, reading the intent, understanding the intent, the fly on the wall concept, and experience the moral aspect in the courtroom. And this is all to come to a final definitive judgment. That's the legal version of what I just said, okay? In terms of understanding that possibility becomes probability when new information is introduced. Now, the medical aspect of this is even more fun. And you could take this and map it onto a billion different things in your life, and you'll change the way you live your life forever. I'll tell you that right now. So, in the medical aspect, a patient is presented with a vague diagnosis. Okay, all right, you might have cancer, maybe not. There's some symptoms going on. Well, it kind of opens up the possibility that it could be this, it could be that, and every disease is simultaneously possible at the same time. Okay, so now along comes Mr. Test. You've heard this bullshit before. We're going to do 40 tests. Why? Because we have to determine what that possibility is, right? So it's part of the process. It's part of being scientific. We have to do it that way. So here's what we do. Every disease is possible here, right now. So we introduce a new pathway of information. We look at an MRI, we look at a lab report, we look at maybe genetics even, and drastically, it somehow moves the math into a unique direction. So now the field of all of these possibilities, they start to slap into one box of one tight set of clinical probabilities, which are just a bunch of different diagnoses at the end of the day. So awesome, no problem. But medicine cannot rely solely on probability. It cannot be solely on that. No, I'm not going to go there. It cannot be solely on probability algorithms of a diagnostic or what AI says, for that matter. People are going to have a choice going forward in the future. Do you want to do a test with AI or without? And some people fear that. They fear putting their life and their possibilities of their life into the hands of technology. There's fear, genuine fear. It's basically the black box concept. If I don't understand how it works, I don't want to put any information into it. That's it. I don't, quote unquote, trust it. It's basically what it is. But here's the deal. True healing needs that physician. It needs their qualia. It needs their intuition. It needs their empathy. It needs their understanding of human suffering in order to take that data and translate it into actual probabilities so they can actually form a treatment plan. So you can see how this works both in medical as well as legal. So at the end of the line on today's episode, because I'm ready to wrap it up here, consciousness is your awareness, and qualia are that raw feelings of experience, how something looks, how something feels. And your brain doesn't show you reality as it truly is. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. But instead, our reality interprets it. Reality is not perception. Interpretation of reality is perception. The part of the brain, the reticular activating system, it acts like a filter. It decides what gets your attention based on what matters to you. And RAS is very important. To go from values all the way over to identity, you have to go through that pathway, that path where you go to values, have to turn into action. Okay, you want to become a fitness person? What does that action look like? What do those values look like? And now you have to take action. What does action do? It provides you with evidence. New information is now introduced into your reality. Now that reinforces your identity. That's the beauty of this. That's what happens when we start to blend these concepts with human psychology. It's beautiful at the end of the day. Got to remember that your attention is going to be based on what matters to you. So what you notice, what you value is going to dictate what you notice. So what you notice and how you feel about it and how you interpret it, it all creates this personal version of your own reality rather than reality itself. That's what I want you to understand. So the bottom line to today's episode, new information changes the math of what might happen into what is likely possible to happen. And AI calculates those little probabilities with an incredible speed, but it takes a conscious human observer to be the interpreter of that, to look at things objectively without bias and through the unique lens of qualia, to turn those probabilities into meaning, into actual solid evaluation, and most of all, action. And that's all I'm going to say on today's episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Feel free to click below on the Patreon link so you can actually contact me and feel free to come on the show and we'll have a nice little conversation about it. Otherwise, what we can look at is you can join the Patreon and we can grow together. Take care.